boost to ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back, episode 153. As the weeks go on, we're going to keep bringing it to you. We got another one out of Argentina, but before we get to all of those fights, how have you been since we last met? What's up, Lee?
I'm high on life.
Is that it, huh?
High on love. High on... You know what I'm not high on? Am I the only person that thinks Cowboy versus Conor is a horrible fight?
I would agree with that. And I would even say that Cowboy, I think, has more advantages there. And people have been getting ripped apart for saying that as well. And I'm on that bandwagon. But there's so many better fights. Why? Why even put that one together? Doesn't even make sense.
Everyone that's what I automatically assumed it was going to be as Conor versus... I didn't think that at all. I thought like Nate Cerrone. I like Poirier Cerrone.
Yep.
I like Gaethje Cerrone.
100%.
That's the one I really want to get down with.
I agree with that right there.
I think out of all of them, I like Kevin Lee Cerrone. Like, there is so many fights. Like, you know what? Honestly, I don't give a fuck if Conor doesn't fight in the 155. I don't care if he just plays with GSP or Floyd or whatever. I really don't care. The 155 is thick enough to me that it doesn't need Conor to shine. And for Cowboy, he's been fighting long enough to get that fight. I think Conor would like that fight. I think that's so horrible. I agree with you. Where does Conor win that fight?
People say striking, but I don't agree with that.
I think Cowboy has better legs than Conor has hands.
I would agree with that. It's a different type of striker, and on the ground, we know for sure Donald Cerrone eats Conor alive. So that's where I think stylistically, it's a really disadvantageous. I love the conspiracy going around that they open the 165 division. If you know anything about the proper one, he tends to get shit done around there. I really like that, and I was like, I don't like that they're doing it with them, but if you give me a 165 division, okay.
I think Nate should get the first 165, and I think Nate and Conor 3 should be the first fight at 165.
I don't agree with Nate being in that discussion.
Why not? He's the one who brought it up. He's the one who put the most amount of steam on it. Not even Poirier. He said it, and Poirier just jumped on his coattails.
True.
I think he said it. Connor's, if you want the money fight, let them open it just for legacy of them being the first fight ever at 165 was Nate Conor 3. Put a fucking pin in that. Cap that off. And then I think we can make a whole fight card of 165 that night. And then you do Gaethje Cowboy as the co. I think we could line it up.
We could easily line it up. There's so many good fights on the way. There's been a couple other ones that I can't think off the
Set
top
up a
of my
165 tournament right off the bat, and the winner gets the belt. I even love that more.
All those divisions are so stacked with fighters that there's a ton of fun matchups. You could go crazy. We could go for days there, but we don't have days to get there.
And we'll talk about it. Obviously, the end of the year is coming, and so we're going to have a best of, and we're going to talk about what we want out of 2019.
What are they again? The Latbees? The Latbees? Latbees?
The Leslies? Oh.
Latbees. I think we
call
them.
The Latbees.
The Latbees, yeah.
You're right. The Latbees. Yeah, we're going to have those come out and stuff, so we'll go through that. But because of the Conor Floyd fight, one thing you have to say, 2019, year to dream. Anything you want. If you're like, I want CM Punk, Logan Paul, we might see it. I asked somebody, do you think that we could see... we'll see CM Punk fight again. We might see DC and WWE. We're going to see John Jones back.
I agree with all that. Crazy. I love it all.
2019 might be the best year of UFC or MMA ever.
Who else was talking about WWE ties? PVZ, I think, is talking about some sort of contract also coming about, which we talked about.
I'm not a hater of PVZ. I just feel like if it's just about looks, PVZ ain't my type. And if it's just about fighting, PVZ ain't my type. So when you mix them together, I'm shrug on it. That is how I feel.
I could see that.
I would be more inclined to date a woman like Joanna just because I would like somebody who's amazing, like amazing at something. That is attractive to me.
I would agree with that. The more the merrier, I always say.
All right.
There's tons of more news. Again, I can't.
How are you doing?
I've been good. I've been cashing chicks. I've been playing spots every single weekend, having lineups ready to go. I, unfortunately, have been educating myself externally outside of MMA, so it's been I've been feeling these last 3 weeks on top of my scholastic activities I've been doing. It's really, and work. So, it's a 3-time job. I'm working 3 jobs essentially over here, breaking down fights on a weekly basis.
So make sure you're liking and subscribing. Show the Bean some love. He's working hard over here.
We have a 12-card bout, though, out of
You know
Argentina.
that Kermit the Frog on the typewriter?
Yep. Yes, that's me. I feel like that sometimes, definitely.
Ting! Old typewriters.
So, have we been in Argentina before? Argentina? I feel like we were there like a year ago, maybe a little longer. I could be wrong.
Or was it the Usman Ponzinibbio fight that was supposed to have? Or
that's what I was thinking.
Something fell out there.
I thought Ponzinibbio even headlined it, but people keep saying this is the first time ever. It might be the first time in this arena, but I just heard that going around, and I'm like, I swear we were there. Even if we weren't, Latin America is definitely getting a push for some fun cards, and this one is not going to be as stacked as we usually had. There's going to be some debuts in there, but we got some fun ones. There's money to be made. Got some standouts in here that in a few years we're going to be saying the same things we were saying about Cerrone and all the other guys. So if you got nothing else, I'm ready to get into this breakdown.
Let's break it down. UFC what?
Oh, you caught me off guard. UFC Fight Night 140, Magny versus Ponzinibbio, headlining it. But you know how we like to do. We start from the bottom to the top. And it's going to start at 145 pounds. The featherweights with Nad Nidamari versus debuting Ander Dos Santos. These Dos Santos guys, is Dos Santos the same as Silva in the last names category?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this debuting guy is coming with a 20-6 record.
There's only 4 last names in Brazil. 3 if you make Noon have a Z and an S and just make it the same. Like you only count it once. Then there's only 3 last names. Like they
misspelled the UFC, misspelled it by accident.
Yeah.
Very, very true. But with this debut fighter, he's 20-6 coming out of Brazil. The 33-year-old has fought 17-4 record fighters. They're out of the Thunder divisions. I think he has 1 jungle fight prior on in his career, but he's had a few losses, TKO punches, a couple submissions in there as well. On the regional scene, just coming out of Brazil at 33, I think that there's other spots for more talent. He, to me, just seems like this filler spot. Nidamari has had a few fights now in the UFC coming out of England. He has a Cage Warriors belt beating Pimlet, but then debuted beating Taha in a decision 3 months ago. What we really saw in Nidamari in that fight, the 31-year-old likes to use his takedowns, use that European wrestling. I didn't ever think I would say that, but he really does like to use the takedowns, sets his punches up well into the takedown. He'll throw that overhand right into a double leg or change levels and elevation. I really am impressed by Nidamari's wrestling and ground control. Striking-wise, serviceable, not going to blow you out of the water, but his game plan doesn't even really fall around there against Pimlet and most of his other competitors. Nidamari is a ground-based fighter. He tries to get it there. The Brazilian fighter always has jiu-jitsu in his back pocket, but I think that we've seen it more and more again where Brazilian jiu-jitsu, some of these guys are a lot better on top position instead of off their backs or even on their backs. Once you defeat their first round of moves, they don't have more. And I feel like that's kind of where Dos Santos lives. I'm going to go with Nidamari decision, but you know how we like to do here at LaTB. I'm going to stay far away from this one. I am going to go Nidamari. I think it's a decided decision. He's just seen a little higher competition all the way around. Who do you have in this bout?
So before we got all the way into it, I thought it was important that, you know how we like to do the elevation.
Good
if
call.
we think the judges are going to be dirty, if we think there might be juiced up. So we don't know too much about that. This is the first time we've been in Argentina. So Buenos Aires is the capital and largest city of Argentina. The city is located on the western shore of the estuary of the Rio de la Plata on the South American continent's southeastern coast. So Buenos Aires can be translated as fair winds or good airs. Anyways, since it's on the coast, I imagine that it's not super
high sea level.
So we shouldn't have to worry about that too much. And I too, that was just a little thing I wanted to look up.
I like that.
Everything
I like
about
that.
it.
That helps.
And I am going to stay far away from this fight. And I'm going to guess you're going to go with, I'm sorry, you said
Nidamari decision.
Yeah, he's so heavy favorited. I'm going to stay away from this fight. But I'm also going to pick Narimani,
9,100 on DraftKings against 7,100 for the debuting Dos Santos. I think a lot of people see the better all-around fighter in general is Nidamari. But we don't need to stick on that one too much. It does not roll off the tongue well there. At minus 275 favorite, a lot of people see the 9,100 on DraftKings. This fighter has had one fight in the UFC, but he did average with all those takedowns in that dominant position over 100 points. DraftKings wise, not over 9,000. He has.
I think that is the one that could bite you in the boot because we don't know. It could be Juiced AF coming into here, Brazilian guy.
It's a good point. And the local guys, even though
so much closer.
The Brazilian isn't Argentinian necessarily, but he's not European. In Europe, I would think they would have much more of a prejudice against locally. But what am I talking about? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
What am I saying?
Getting back to the fights at 155 pounds, we have Devin Powell versus debuting Jesus Pedio. How would you pronounce that? Pedio?
Devin Powell versus Jesus Pinedo. Panedo. I don't know. Where's he from? Peru?
He is a Peruvian fighter, 22 years old. He has 15 fights over 20 fights under his belt.
El Mudo?
He is 15-4. As few losses he's had were earlier on in his career. At 22 years old, early in his career means that he was like freaking 18, 19 years old when those losses came about. And it was usually versus TKO. Devin Powell is 9-3 in the UFC. He's definitely had a hard run at things, losing his first two fights in the UFC to Dakar Close in a decision, then losing to Darren Horcher in a split decision, finally getting his first win against Alvaro Herrera, a TKO body kicks 3 months ago. Herrera, to me, isn't necessarily UFC caliber, and Powell, for me, is teetering on that UFC caliber position. Pedino, what's his nickname again? El Mudo, the Mood. Jesus, striking wise, Powell comes in with also a Canadian champion, I believe, kickboxing background, but he tends to get hit a little more than I like in there, doesn't wear a punch well, and his output isn't the highest at 155, but it doesn't really stick out. Against the striker that is the slight favorite, debuting 22-year-old, he does have better striking credentials, hits with a bit more power. On the ground, we haven't seen much from him, but neither have we with Powell. Powell has okay takedown defense, but Dakar Close, who's going to be a way better fighter than Mudo. I don't think that that's going to go there. I see this being a striking bout. I think that the bright lights affect Jesus a little bit more here being young. I see him being a heavy favorite, but Powell is a gritty fighter and has already had 3-round decisions against much higher competition. I got Powell in a decisive split decision. Could see myself switching over later on in the week, but I think that it's a little too much hype on this young man. I like what I saw in there, but the competition he's fought at times has been much lower than Powell's. How do you feel this one goes down?
I like all that. I like Powell decision as well. Just 3 UFC fights and all of it, like 2 decision with the first 2 of them. That means he has okay cardio. That's like a big deal for me going in. I think this is really weird. I think this is weird that it's such a favorite.
It's because this young man's been getting submission finishes and knockouts on the regional scenes. He is fighting guys that do have substantive records at 3-5 are some of his opponents. He does have a couple other ones in there that are 5-0, but still,
I think the odds are off there.
yeah, the odds are off.
And I
got
agree.
an underdog
I like
there
the decision. I
for
like Powell.
At
I don't have anything to add.
7,700 for Powell.
I was trying to
against-
pull something, and I'm like, you know what?
There's other fights we can
Yeah.
talk. Definitely. The debuter, El Mudo, 8,500 on DraftKings against 7,700 for Powell. Do I already see my underdog of the night / wage gauge of the night? The only thing I don't like is that this young man has power, and Powell sometimes leaves his face to be hit. Sometimes doesn't get his head out of the way there enough, but I believe that Powell's jiu-jitsu, ground attack, IQ is going to take over. How heavy do you think you're going to put Powell on there at 7,700 on your DraftKings card?
If there's no other cheaper fighters, I might just have to put them everywhere.
I guess, yeah, that one we'll see as we go along
Yeah,
in
it's
the
all
card.
what I
how
can
much.
afford. And
But
I never put anything everywhere. But right now, it's looking like 60%, 50%.
I like that. So
I know I can say that I'll have El Mudo nowhere. I'll have I don't even have anything clever to say about it.
So we're going to stay in this middling weight division with Austin Arnett versus Herberto Mandane. Both of these fighters have fought in the UFC multiple times now. 27-year-old Arnett has 3 losses in a row, being 15-5 in the UFC.
Wait, I think you skipped one.
Am I doing that again? Gosh darn it.
Hector
I
Aldana.
did. Sorry,
Okay.
170 pounds. Hector Aldana versus debuting Loreno Strapoli?
Sam Tripoli.
It's Sam Tripoli's cousin.
Laureano Staropoli.
Staropoli is 7-1. The Argentinian local La Plata native is 25 years old, winning most of his fights via finish brutally. One loss coming in there many years ago against Hector Aldana, who's 4-1, fighting off of the Latin America one show, getting losses in there, and then losing his 2 fights in the UFC. One to Enrique Martin on the show, and then his debut in the UFC officially. He lost to Kigos Kang Song 4 months ago. Aldana was definitely not a top prospect in that season, was barely in the show. Nobody thought he was going to turn into much, and he hasn't really, unfortunately, for the 30-year-old. He's a low output fighter, is a little undersized for the 170-pounders. Cardio isn't that good, and chin is middling. I mean, he was just finished in his last fight against Song, who is a heavy hitter, but either way, Aldana keeps his head very stationary in there. His grappling as well, not up to par. I just don't like Aldana here more than anything. The 7-1 fighter, Strapoli, I think is going to have much tougher fights later on. He's kind of getting a premier fight. I think that they're trying to hype up the local natives, and they're throwing them to the wolves. Strapoli has fought some level competition. It's also out of the local scene, but they're
He's the first competition
6-5.
for like most of his fights. Like they're 1-0.
1-0. Yeah. He hits with a ton of power, moves forward, is really aggressive from what I saw on the ground. Haven't seen much from him, but neither have I from Aldana either. The takedowns I saw shot on Strapoli were really bad takedowns, and he was able to stop those. So I'm going to be really hesitant on this fight. I'm not going to play it heavy, but I'm going to go with decided favorite just because I don't like Aldana. I've been trying to fade him for a while, and it's worked out as of late. I'm going to go Strapoli decision, if not finish in the first round. This guy gets a lot of first round finishes, so I guess I can't play decision at all because it's pretty much that first or second round or he's done. If it gets in a third, he could just give up one of those baby slice decisions. Or submissions, I mean. I got Strapoli. TKO round number 2. I'm not. I don't feel that confident. I'll probably put
I
him
have
on a couple.
Aldana decision. I think he's going to hang on to him and wear him out. I think Strapoli has 0 cardio. I'm just guessing all of this. All the people that he's fought are like 1-0 records. The guy who knocked out Hector Aldana last has more fights than every single person, win and loss record that Staropoli has ever gone against
in the last 4 years.
I think Aldana's going to pull out a decision, and it's going to be a garbage fight.
This is going to be one that you can make your hot dogs, get your food ready, get ready for another fight. Don't see tons of action. So I see decision as well, Aldana, or a finish, Strapoli, but I don't see Strapoli getting a decision in there.
No.
Going to be tentative, 8,200 for the debuter against Aldana's 8,000 even. Are you going to play Aldana on your DraftKings for 8,000?
I'll probably stay away from this fight, honestly.
I would agree with that.
I don't trust either guy.
I would agree with that. I do not see that being a fun fight. That's not going to be winning you any type of tournaments by the winner of that. I guess
unless you get that first round finish, but
yeah.
I gotta think he has a little more experience than that. I just gotta think he has more experience than a guy that's fought one time.
I would tend to agree with that. Definitely hesitant there. I'll probably put Strapoli on a couple just because if he has the more likelihood to finish out of the two fighters for me. Staying in the middling division, 145 pounds, we have Austin Arnett versus Herberto Bandone. Both of these fighters have fought in the UFC, 15-5. Arnett is coming off of a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC, losing his Contender Series fight, then getting still a shot in the UFC, losing to Sam Hagen short notice, and then as of late, losing to Hakeem Dadoue via decision 3 months ago. Herberto Bandone is also out of Peru. The 24-year-old has Latin America ties, teen UFC tough Latin America ties. He was a underdog on the show, King of the Cage veteran, definitely good submissions, tons of power on the feet. Cardio is where he can be exploited a little bit more, but brutal striking for Bandone. Thing I really don't like is he's just coming off of his first TKO loss, being 15-4 against Gabriel Benitez via slam. Bandone hits heavy, throws good leg kicks, throws a heavy overhand right over the top, and hurts a lot of his opponents in the first round. Does gas a little bit going into that second and third, and Arnett can grind it out a little bit in there. All the way around, the only place I might see Arnett potentially having a spot is if he catches a submission off of his back, but I even think Bandone has good enough submission defense that if Arnett isn't on top, just kind of decisioning this fight out, I see Bandone winning everywhere here. Actually, I'm going to go with Bandone, TKO round number 1.
Wow.
Yeah, I still, even though I have that, this is a lot like our earlier fight. Both of these guys haven't looked as good as you'd hoped, but I do feel like the more potential in either one of these fighters by far is Bandone. I'm not going to go super heavy, even though I have a TKO round number 1, same as that Strapoli pick earlier. This isn't, again, the highest caliber fight, so hard to call, but I'm going with the minus 260 favorite. Who do you have in this fight?
King of the Cage isn't a shit organization by any means. Like, they have some decent competition. A lot of guys we watch. Connor, wasn't he a King of the Cage guy?
Cage Warriors.
Cage Warriors. Oh, okay. Who's King of the Cage?
There's been multiple other guys out of there. They're definitely not an unknown organization by any means.
Yeah, I've heard of them before. I thought they were a different one. Anyway, the guys that Arnett's lost to are just so much higher caliber. Like, they've snuck up to be some of these really good guys that like Brandon Davis and Duwadu. Not that like, whoa, we're so high on him, or Duwadu, but they're like guys that they'll snipe a fight, they'll ruin your card, they'll ruin your night. Arnett doesn't have any gifts. The only thing he could do is make the fight boring AF. In which case, I do think Bandone will eventually be able to just overpower. But like you're saying, Bandone doesn't have a lot of cardio, so if it happens, it has to happen in like the first round and a half. I have Bandone KO round 2, ground and pound finish. I just think he's stronger, but I think this could be a really boring fight, in which case I still think Bandone can win the first 2 rounds and eke out the decision. It's just if he's too expensive, it might be like, it could be a
good call. I would agree with that. Good call. For 8,900, Bandone is going to be the decided DraftKings favorite against 7,300 for Arnett. He has to get that finish all the way around in order to be worth it.
Yeah, it has to come. Maybe it will. I mean, he's kind of a local guy. He has that look, and that's why I don't want to jump on a hype train with him.
Agreed. He just came out there and got starched by a fighter who's middling at best.
Yeah. So is Arnett, but the nervous thing with Arnett is he's had enough fights now, the last 2 fights in the last year, to make real money and train full time. And that's where we see these guys come out so differently. He's from that freaking part of the country where grind central cardio ruiners. Like, that's what I just see him. I almost see him just hugging Bandonnet kind of close, ruining his cardio and squeezing out an ugly decision.
A gross ass decision. Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Every fight so far, I'm just like nervous about that one.
We were saying before, and you know how we like to hype up cards here and be like, yeah, this is going to be an awesome... This one...
It might be a slow start.
Hey, we like to say, this one's a fun one betting-wise if you like to be on a roller coaster for betting. This isn't tons of solid favorites, or there's a lot of underdog spots just because the...
Or it might be a one that you main card heavy.
Yeah, only the ones you really know, just because there's so much potential in these earlier fights to go.
And if you're not following us on Twitter at Lesbo and the Bean, the other thing we're going to do at the end of the year is we'll release our final percentages of like how many we got correct on the main cards and how many we got correct on the whole cards. And because I think we should separate it. A lot of other sites are separating theirs, and I'm like, we're the only assholes that pick all of them. Most of them only do like the main. Right. Sometimes they'll eke into the main event of the prelim, but anyway.
So on to the 120-pound flyweight division. I'm not skipping one. All right, we're good enough of Arnett. We move on to the 125ers with...
oh my gosh. So it's official. TJ and Cejudo at 125.
Oh, I thought we already talked about that last time.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we Pantoja at 125, but is that what reminded you?
Yeah.
Because they're going to have this weird fight, even though they're saying they're disassembling the 125-pound division. And they're having a premier fight here, and Pantoja versus Ulka Sasaki. I mean, this is top-level fighting right here. This is why you keep the 125-pound division, because both of these guys, I see prospect all over, fun fighters. I could see...
I think, though, even if it absorbs into the 135...
They still do great, right?
It'll still be fun.
I was just kind of thinking, Sasaki, I've always wanted to move up. He's a skeleton of a person in there. But...
And Pantoja walks around pretty thick. What would he be without that extra cut water?
He's definitely a standout coming out of the tough series in Latin America. The 19-3 Pantoja had a spotted record in the UFC, beating Brandon Moreno in a decision as of late, losing to Ortiz, beating Eric Shelton in there as well, beating a couple other top-level guys. I mean, Pantoja, sneaky dark horse in the division, good all the way around, tons of power, on the ground, sneaky black belt. A lot of people have been hyping up Pantoja for a long, long time. That setback against Ortiz, a lot of people didn't see coming, other than here at LaTB. No, we like to play Dustin Ortiz a lot in there. But in this fight, I think it's Pantoja gets to pick where he wants to keep this fight. Sasaki tends to get his wins on the ground, and it usually is after he's losing a fight. He's 21-5 coming out of that Japanese scene. He's coming off of a win to Lauza 4 months ago via submission. Prior to that, he had lost to Formiga, beat Scoggins in a fight that he was getting brutally beat down, and then has a loss as well to Wilson Hayes in there. These are comparable records to each other. The 28-year-old Pantoja against the 29-year-old Sasaki. I think the specialist here is Sasaki on the ground. The better all-around fighter with power and master of no trades, but good all the way around. Even on the ground, I got Pantoja. I think Pantoja gets a decision here, not a potential finish. Sasaki has that puncher's chance. He has that submissioner's chance. He always, even in the third round, if he's losing a fight, can jump on a guillotine, throw up a triangle, be in that 5 foot 10 inches at 125 pounds. Pantoja and most other people have just never fought guys
that tall at
that weight. So on the ground, throws up unique stuff. But I think if Pantoja can keep it striking, and striking wise, I see Pantoja maybe even knocking out Ulka in there. I'm going to try to go Pantoja wherever I can, but for 9,300 on DraftKings, it's going to be hard. I think this goes to decision. Who do you have in this
Are
fight?
we seeing a resurgence of Novunyao?
No, I think we've seen a steady decline. I think it's been a steady decline. This young man he hits so hard though, and has such good credentials.
I actually think this fight could be a banger for a little while.
Yeah, I can see
Sasaki
that.
likes to stand and throw sometimes, and just stand and.
True.
Yeah, I think it'll be bloody, banger. I think it could be exciting. The only reason I'm saying this, Sasaki likes to win one, lose one, win one, lose one. So I think it's submission loss, easy, round 2, Pantoja. I don't know how heavy I'm going to go. I think really, the more I'm looking at it, really might stay main card heavy.
9,300 on DraftKings for Pantoja is steep against Uka 6,900.
Sasaki will ruin your night.
This is one of those ones that's set up to ruin your night. Pantoja minus 345 against the plus 260 underdog. DraftKings wise, is there any value there on Sasaki?
Maybe if he doesn't get knocked out.
If he
But
doesn't
we
get
both think
finished
he's
the
going to
first
get
two?
finished.
Yeah.
We don't know how it's coming, but we see it coming.
True. I'm going to mix in a couple of these higher ranked fighters, Pantoja, and a couple of these other guys. It's going to be a mix up in there. It's going to be a funny night of fight cards, for sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be all
your
over
strategy.
the place. It's going to be called a night of Grandpa's eyebrows. All over the place.
So, we're going to get to the 170-pounders, where we have somebody who's been all over the place for a while, Michel Prazeres against Brat Fabinski, or Bartosz Fabinski. Prazeres 25-2.
The Butcher.
Against the Butcher, Fabinski 14-2. The Polish fighter tends to have a fond eye over here from Lesbo, coming off of a win over Hector Urbina 2 years ago, and then 3 months ago beating Weber Meek in a decision. Fabinski likes to use his takedowns to win fights. He likes to grind in there. He's been doing it really, really well in there. Has looked humongous. Absolutely unreal. Lesbo was all over him as a big underdog in his last fight. And I was really surprised at the amount of grappling control that Fabinski has. Striking-wise, he hasn't really showed us much because he doesn't like to strike. His strikes are set up directly for that takedown. He has good penetration on his shots and walks right through his takedowns until he gets on a top position. On top, he works non-stop, really wears guys out. Michel Prazeres, 170-pounder who has missed weight habitually at 155 pounds and even at 170. Missing weight by, I believe, 2 or 3 pounds the last 3-4 fights in a row.
He's always enormous, juiced. He only fights in Brazil. That's how I'm starting to think they're juiced down there. They're all juicing, even Argentinian.
I'd agree with that. But that's what we see from Prazeres. He's gonna have unreal cardio on the ground. He's a little troll. He is short and stocky.
Do you remember how little Des Green looked in there?
Yes. It's just unreal. Who'd he just tear apart in there?
Zach Cummings.
That
was a split decision.
And Zach Cummings, though, cuts down from 185 pounds. Prazeres still weighed in 6 pounds overweight and looked huge to Cummings.
He knows he's going to give up 20% going in. If there's a bet
100%.
that you're going to know he's going to miss weight, take that wager.
Right, because what is it on the year that fighters that miss weight and win still? Last weekend didn't happen with Pennington. She'd lost. One of the few. But I believe it's like 70% of the fighters come in and overweight. Something we have to look out for on the cards. Again, if you're not following and subscribing on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, we will put on the Twitter and Insta, the IG, kind of our last bets, because the weigh-ins are going to matter here. Prazeres is probably going to be overweight. How much do you think he's going to be overweight? 5, 10, 15 pounds? And that's not even exaggerating. He really is that type of a fighter that has done that before. He
already knows he's going to lose. He wants to, whatever the legal amount he's still allowed to fight is.
Right. So, Matt, stylistically, this is a grinder versus a grinder fight to me. Prazeres, striking-wise, I think might have a little bit crisper striking boxing. On the ground, both have good cardio. Prazeres is a Tank has good sweeps off of his back. We haven't seen it as much from Fabinski. We've seen a lot of top and back control. And I think that Prazeres can really, to a lot of people, just make them seem like they're out of place. And I got Prazeres in a decision here. I think there's a grind city fest at all. There's going to be something to watch on the ground that we'll be looking at later on in years. But nothing flashy is going to really happen. If it's strangulation, it's going to be slow and methodical.
Did we think his last fights were sketchy at all? That maybe he lost them, but the judges gave it to him anyway?
I didn't think so. I think Prazeres uses a good takedown. Surprisingly, he doesn't have his best takedown defenses. He has takedowns and usually ends up on top. A few times he's been put on his back. Prazeres hasn't done well. I don't know if Fabinski can do that, though.
I think I'm going to go with the Polish fighter again. I just like his reach advantage here, so I think he's going to be able to get inside enough for the grinding takedown. Prazeres has garbage cardio, and I think he's just slowly going to wear that out. Like, we didn't get to see Des Green really take advantage of that because of this huge size difference. Zach Cummings and him, it was an obvious, a split decision, and I think Fabinski might be able to wear him out slowly.
Fabinski looked so much better than beating Herbina. He had pretty much a 2-year layoff, and against Meek, I remember picking against him. You also had Fabinski in that.
I changed to Meek at the last minute on my tap allergy.
I remember that you had talked him up, and rightfully so. Everything I remember seeing from Fabinski is good, but this is Prazeres to me is that one guy that makes everybody look bad in there. He's done it over and over again, and you fool me once, can't fool me twice, can't fool me again. So I'm gonna go with Prazeres decision. You got Fabinski, the underdog, at 7,600 against the 8,600 favorite for Prazeres, minus 215 favorite as well for Prazeres.
But I also see Prazeres winning the first two, and then Fabinski taking over and not having enough time to get the decision.
Like a lot of other fights, this is close.
How much did you just say Prazeres was?
On DraftKings?
Yeah.
It is 8,600.
I don't know if there's real value there.
I agree with
Prazeres.
that. I agree with that. I do think this is a stay-away fight, unless I could see Fabinski being a wage gager here, because I could see this staying as a decision fight. For 7-6, there's value there for me.
I like that too. And I could change to Prazeres too, especially if he comes in fat boy.
Yeah.
If he's overweight, change into him.
Good call.
That's the thing. If Prazeres is overweight, pick him.
So that headlined our preliminary Fight Pass cards. Now we're going to move on to the main card. It's going to be a 6-bout main event out of Argentina.
You girls home.
Coming off of that weed suspension.
I think it's a conspiracy.
Me too. Trying to keep a brown woman down.
I think that Calvillo wasn't as good as the fan base behind her, and I think it was a favor of the UFC because she fought enough fights to make a little money. She's out of Alpha Male. She's still out of Alpha Male. Mm-hmm. To let her sit back a little bit, build a little skill set instead of keep taking fights. It's almost a favor in a way.
To give her a little more time to just keep working. A little more time
to grow instead of taking a bunch of L's.
I mean, Carla Esparza decision in her first loss ever isn't absolutely horrible. She gets mixed reviews in there. She ended up getting ground out. It's whether you can see Paulina Bontello come in here at 115 pounds and be able to take over Cynthia Calvillo. The 7-1 fighter is the more local Brazilian fighter. I think if out of the two, the Novo União fighter is going to have the crowd behind her back other than the American, or I would say.
Yeah.
Calvillo, 31 years old, is 6-1 in her career. Again, first loss against Carla Esparza, I don't think is that bad in a decision fight. There was tons of hype. Was she at Dana White's side at one point in time and Dana was like, this is the future. This is it. He's done it a few times. The Dana curse, almost. He did it to Nagano. Who else has he gotten?
Don't get my bag, Dana.
Yeah, don't sit by me. Don't sit by me. Get off stage, Dana. Let me talk to the press on my own. But Calvillo, again, that weed restriction coming out of Alpha Male, Nova União, they've had a common relationship for years now where it was Aldo versus Uriah Faber in WEC days. This team knows how to prepare for each other. And as of late, I've seen more alpha male people get the better of Nova União, and the juice might be loose more places than we tend to think. But alpha male put those thoughts in our minds themselves with that TJ Cody tidbits that have been dropping around. Botello coming out of União, they like to juice a little bit too, I'd like to say.
Aldo.
Barao.
Is Aldo out of Nova União?
Yeah, he's still there. Botello, though, out of Nova União for the ladies, all those ladies left Nova União. Gedalia left. She was the big one there. There was a bunch of other ones, and like Nova União's had a falling out. They haven't been able to keep ladies around that much, but they're known to be a camp that...
Novu Sausage Fest.
Yeah. And they like to strike heavily. They like to really put you in the meat grinder in there.
Yeah, that's
damage. So a lot of fighters have gotten out of there. Botello, though, in this fight, likes to keep it striking. On the ground is okay, but I don't think she's ever dealt with a wrestler like Calvillo before. She has a win over TKO over Kondo, but Kondo 5 months ago tends to be just a striker out of South Korea. She beat Pearl Gonzagas in a decision, but I think Pearl is still a developing fighter more so than Calvillo is. Calvillo on the ground, I don't think can submit Botello, but I think striking-wise, Calvillo has a disadvantage. It's all in the takedown and the transitions, and I see the better all-around MMA fighter being Calvillo. I got a decision here. I'm going to stay clear from this. I think this turns into a weird submission transition stuff. I think Botello has a shot potentially, but I'm going to go with the slight underdog, plus 110. Give me Cynthia Calvillo for a decision. Who do you have in this fight?
I'm hoping this is Cynthia Calvillo's comeback, and they're kind of doing her a little bit of a favor here. If she can get inside, I think she can submit her, but she is going to take damage in the first to do it. I think Botello can go to Calvillo's body and maybe stop this fight early. I'm a little hesitant too, but I think I will. Didn't sound like it, but that was kind of, I will put Cynthia Calvillo on like a third of my cards. I think she can use her UFC experience. She's been in there with some girls that are looking better and better and better every day. I hope that Alpha Male has protected their future investment and watched good tape, trained her well, and she figures out how to submit Botello.
Botello, 8,300 on DraftKings against a 7,900 for Calvillo. Looks like we both got an underdog. Minus 114 favorite. Botello as well on the betting lines. I'm going to be sprinkling some shots on their decision. I like that submission play potentially for Calvillo as well. I could see some prop bets being made there. Over 2.5. I don't usually play over or unders, but I feel like in the women's division, over bets tend to be pretty solid.
The UFC is not feeding Calvillo to the wolves. I think they like her too much, in my opinion. But she did show her ass the last time she walked off the stage.
But Esparza not feeding to the wolves, former champ? I mean, that's a pretty high step up in competition.
Yeah, but she was on a little win streak, and at the time the division was kind of small, unless you were fighting like JJ, Rose. Like there was that top echelon, and it wasn't Carla. Carla was on a losing streak at the time, and Calvillo was on a win streak. And Carla won the decision, and remember how pissed Calvillo walked out? Like, fuck that! And then...
Pop.
Yeah, we were wondering, like, are you getting in trouble? Little slap on the wrist?
A little something there for you. So, on to the bantamweights, 135ers. We have one of our all-time favorites here. We have Marlon Chito Vera, underdog for days, usually comes through for us here at LaTB, constantly making money for us. Unfortunately, against Guido Canetti, we got a decided favorite, and a lot of people see what we're going to see here. Chito Vera always got that heart in there, always in a grind of a fight, has knockout ability into the third round by finishing Pickett and other fights that he's been down on the cards. Come back, he just has that fighting spirit that we tend to love here at LaTB. Guido Canetti, 8-3. The 38-year-old is coming off of one of his biggest wins, being the fighting against the Diego Rivas in Diego Rivas' Chilean hometown. The only fighter that was out of Chile lost a decision in the judges, and that's because Guido Canetti used his takedowns to control that fight and win a very one-sided, boring decision. Really like the game plan that Canetti put together. Coming out of Our Time MMA, Buenos Aires' own Canetti tended to be a Muay Thai striker, was also a part of that team, Tough Latin America, that's getting a big profile here. But he lost on the show, ended up coming in for Chito Vera on the show. When Chito got hurt off of one of his wins, Canetti lost, I believe, 2 of those fights in a row. Then has now had a semi-resurgence against, again, a low-caliber Diego Rivas, who came off of cancer. Beating cancer was his biggest win. So, Chito Vera...
That's anyone's biggest win.
I would agree with that. Chito Vera, again, we know what he's fighting for. His daughter, with all of the facial paralysis and everything, the 25-year-old likes to push it on the ground. He's got nasty submissions coming out of that Jackson Wink camp. Vera striking TKO. I think he can beat Canetti striking in the Muay Thai on the ground for sure. I know he can beat him. Canetti, though, has stifling top control and will hold you like he did to, who was the other guy he just fought? Rivas. He just stayed on top, and he potentially could try to do that to Vera. I like Vera's stand-ups. He fights the hands well, gets his hips out, and throws nice knees for guys who have bad takedowns. Canetti is persistent on the takedown, but his level changes are slow and sloppy, and I think Vera, I had him decision earlier on in the week, but the more and more I'm talking about this, I love Chito Vera's clinch, and he loves it as well, and against a fighter in Canetti who can sit there and get exploited, I got Vera with a knee coming up the middle. TKO round number 2 or 3. Going with number 2. Chito Vera. Give me the favorite. -300. Who do you have in this fight?
I got to take Chito everywhere, too. I tend to stay with him. I even picked him against Lineker. Lineker just doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, he just stands with a cement face. But Chito is game. He's always willing to stand and bang. And one fun thing is I think that Canetti will play along. I think he'll stand and bang back. I think this fight is going to be exciting while it lasts. And Chito just has more tools everywhere, in my opinion. I think he can figure it out. I did have round 3, but I think he can figure it out in round 2. Maybe even round 1. I think if it goes to the ground, he can submit Canetti. I think you can put Chito on your cards. How heavy favorited is he?
9,200 on DraftKings against 7,000.
It's a lot for Chito. I'm not used to paying that much for Chito.
It is a lot. Luckily, Calvillo is lower down there for Binsky, even though I don't have him in that. Looks like he could be a potentially good play as well there. So I think I'm going to be able to afford a couple of these guys, the more underdogs I see coming. I think Pal even's got a couple shots in there. Be able to open up those high over 9,000 price tags. Finally getting into some of these heavier guys, we move on to the 185-pound division where Cesar Ferreira comes in versus Ian Heinisch. Heinisch being 11-1, the 30-year-old fighter, won his debut off of the Contender Series. Not his debut, this is his debut. Won his fight in the Contender Series against Justin Smullen, TKO. Elbows from the guard. Good takedowns, good ground and pound, but again, we've seen over and over again, contender level fighters aren't necessarily UFC caliber. He has a couple other finishes out of the LFA scene. LFA has produced top level fighters. Marcus Perez out of there, another UFC alum, was able to triangle choke a year or 2 months ago, Heinisch, and submission and ground specialties is where Heinisch seems to be the most susceptible striking wise. He's very, very serviceable. Not even very serviceable. He's a general all-around striker, but not tons and tons of power. His elbows on the ground and pound look really, really good, but if there's somewhere to exploit you and it's on the ground, Cesar Ferreira being a world champion jiu-jitsu fighter, being 13-6 is a bit chinny. His biggest issue is that chin, but he's one of those Shirkinov type fighters where on the ground, if Ferreira gets you on the ground once, this fight's over. But if he gets clipped at any point in time in there by a water bottle being thrown in by the fans, he's out of there. It's just scary for me to put money on Ferreira, even though I see a very one-sided path for him to win, and that's getting this fight to the ground and immediately submitting him. Able to do that, and sneakily, Ferreira is one of the best wrestlers, if not the best wrestler, at 185 pounds. He has, I believe, 22 out of 25 attempted takedowns landed. He's almost like 80-90% on his takedowns. And again, he's gotten away from his strikes because he knocked out 2 opponents, thought he was a striker, got in there versus a striker and got knocked out like 2-3 fights in a row. He's getting back to that submission game plan. I got Ferreira here, the slight favorite, in a submission round number 2. I don't think he messes around anymore. I think he has a direct plan for the belt, and he's going to use a submission route in his back pocket to get there. Who do you have in this fight?
I also have Cesar Ferreira submission round 2. I could move it up to the submission round 1. I just don't want to completely disrespect a kid that could be hungry, could be training. I like Colorado scene right now. I don't want to be naive to think you can just stroll in here with UFC caliber guy and take it there. And so this isn't anything against the Hurricane. I can't wait to watch him fight. I hope he sticks around after this, but I hope after a few UFC fights he can afford to train full time if he's not already. But I have, what did you say?
Mutanch. Cesar Mutanch Ferreira.
What's that mean?
I couldn't tell you Mutanch, but it's Portuguese, maybe for bull or like strong. I could be wrong there though.
Yep, submission.
Round number 2. Did we even up? Did we have TKO round number 2 for Vera as well? You know how we like to put. I'll be putting some bets on both of those. I'm just telling you right now.
But I could be moving up Ferreira to round 1.
I like round number 2 as well. I like what you're saying. I think he cooks him a little bit there, and then Heinrich just pretty much tries to fight that takedown the whole time. 8,400 for the slight favorite in Ferreira against the 7,800. How much do you see yourself playing Ferreira there?
50. I'm just, the more I look at this, even this main card, I'm probably not going to be real heavy. I'm so glad it's working out for me to play the cards I'm really comfortable with and sticking with what I know. This card's a little...
I think that's a good game plan as well. We've been doing well the last couple of weeks. Now it's time to store those nuts a little bit. Wait for an even better betting option. Play that heavy. Have fun with this card. Put some crazy cards together, but don't put your rent on this one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to also start doing for the audience is I don't want to just say a card to say a card. When I feel great about one, I want to say it. And I feel like last week I felt really good about my card going into it, and it paid off. So this I'm in.
So we warned you. You can't say later.
That's it. That's all I want to put on that.
You fool me once, you can't fool me again.
Can't fool me twice.
So talking about being
that
fooled.
was my Kathy Bates impression.
That was a good one. Talking about people that have fooled us before. At 205, we have Khalil Roundtree versus debuting Johnny Walker. You know someone's going to be drunk in there. Roundtree, 7-2, has been all sorts of hyped up, lost pivotal fights. We know the way to beat Khalil Roundtree, and that is get him to the ground, submit him, and Johnny Walker, 14-3, I just don't see has the capabilities of doing that. He has fought some fighters that are 17-8. He won his fight in the Contender Series, Brazil, knocking out Henrique Frankenstein de Silva 3 months ago, who is not UFC caliber fighter. Roundtree also has a bout against Henrique, and guess who he knocked out in the first round? Henrique de Silva. So I don't take anything away from that. I don't necessarily know if Walker is UFC caliber yet. I don't like his takedowns. He is 6'5", which is apparently his biggest credential, that he has an 81-inch reach in there. But to me, he has a bit of that James Vick, other tall guys that we see in there. His chin goes straight up in the air when he throws a punch because he has to punch down at people more so. Roundtree hasn't seen a fighter this tall, but it's easier to punch up than to punch down, I would say. So that overhand right just lands with more power when you're slinging it the way Roundtree slings it. And Johnny Walker, I'm sure you've seen a couple highlights going around. I think Mac Malley's thrown a couple in there where his head bounces around in there like a pinball. He was knocked out maybe 4 times in a round early on in his career and his first couple fights, but that was against low-level competition. Roundtree can do that. Where Roundtree's going to fool you is he's going to get another knockout here, just like we predicted before. People are going to go put tons of hype on him, but against a good grappler, Roundtree cannot hold his own. So here for this fight specifically, I see the huge favorite at minus 260 for a reason. I'm going to have Roundtree everywhere. He's going to be expensive everywhere, but I don't think Walker's that level of competition, and I think this is a highlight finish. Roundtree, TKO. KO, I mean, not a TKO. This is...
Cold night.
Yeah, cold, dead man on the canvas. Roundtree wins it. Who do you have in this fight?
I also have Khalil Roundtree. I think he has better hands, and just he's looking more and more like a UFC fighter every time he comes in. His body's more and more chiseled. His cardio looks a little better. I hope this doesn't just stifle out and become a boring fight because of how big this guy is and just lays on him or something. But I do think it's just going to be standing and throwing, in which case Roundtree wins everywhere. I think Roundtree KO round 1. I'm not
3 in a row.
Did you say round 1?
I said round 1. 3 in a row. I'm going to be putting another prop bet, TKO, but I think a lot of people see that one here. Great. Shockingly enough, on DraftKings, 8,800 for Roundtree. Not even over 9,000 against 7-4. I feel like Roundtree's a linchpin on my cards this weekend. Like, I'm going to be putting him on 100% and then taking him off 10% so I don't absolutely ruin my night like I tend to do sometimes. But Roundtree is going to be somebody that I'm going to be playing everywhere because I'm going to be able... At under 9,000, that's a steal. That's a steal. On to the co-main event of the night. We have a profile fight. This could be a Fight of the Year contender. Definitely one of the ones you're going to have to stay up for to watch in Ricardo Lamas versus Darren Elkins at 145 pounds. Both of these fighters fighting long time in the UFC, had long careers, 24-6. The 34-year-old Elkins coming off of a loss, off of a huge winning streak to Alexander Volkanovski in a decision 3 months ago. And Volkanovski just got signed in a banger of a fight that I can't think of.
Volkanovski.
He's also one of those Kiwi guys or New Zealanders coming out of there. Little tank of a man. But I don't want to take too much shine away from Darren Elkins' loss as of late. Volkanovski is just a beast in there in a decision. Elkins just took, traditionally like he usually does, a ton of damage in that fight. Surprised that it didn't get finished a few times with some of those rights that landed. Ricardo Lamas, 18-7, has been a top 10 fighter, if not top 5 fighter, for a long time now. He is coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, but it's to Josh Emmett, TKO punches, and then to Mirsad Bektik in a split decision 4 months ago, which Darren Elkins actually has a win over Bektik in one of the comebacks of the year a few years ago against Bektik. This fight, stylistically, is really, really tough for Darren Elkins because Darren Elkins is that grinder. He kills you by 1,000 cuts, never going to knock you out unless it's that cardio that eventually does it in the third round. It's not those power shots, which for Lamas seem to be what gets him into the most trouble. It's a heavy-handed, good striker with good wrestling that gets Lamas in trouble, and unfortunately for Elkins, the heavy hands aren't there. So the wrestling is where this goes down to, and I see this turning into a scrap of a wrestling match, but I do see Lamas being a slightly better wrestler here, having good takedown defense, and striking-wise, I see Lamas not having more power, but being technically a bit more sound there. The cardio-wise, Lamas has enough cardio where Elkins tends to really turn it on in that third round. Lamas has proven time and time again that he can stay in that third round and in the last 10 seconds throw 12 punches and be absolutely fine. So I don't think Elkins gets that classic third round finish, which is pretty much what he's been waiting on now as of late in his career. So I got Lamas in a decision. I still see this being a banger of a fight. I see, if anything, I see Lamas opening up a bit more because I don't think he's going to be that intimidated by Elkins' strikes. Again, I got a decision for the slight favorite, or for the heavier favorite in Lamas, minus 240. Who do you have in this fight?
I think Lamas' chin isn't what it used to be, and Elkins does have okay hands. I think Lamas is going to get hurt here. I think Darren Elkins is just stable everywhere. He's just a stable fighter. And this, even though I want to say at his age, I keep waiting for him to retire and the damage. But maybe it's not as bad at this weight class. Maybe the strikes aren't as heavy. I think time, even though it looks like to the face that it's been nicer to Lamas. I don't agree to the chin. I think Lamas is more chinny here than Darren Elkins. And I don't really like Lamas going forward anymore. And I know he's been in fights with crazy, talented guys. I think Darren Elkins has better hands than Bektik. And I think he keeps coming forward. He has so much heart, and he's going to wear down that cardio. I think Darren Elkins is going to eke out the decision, if not the finish here. Yeah, I don't think it's a standing banging days of Lamas's standing and banging with people like he have put some years on that chin.
Totally. Ricardo Lamas, 8,700 on DraftKings against Elkins, 7,500. I see a decision. You see a win for Elkins. You know how we like to play Elkins here. At 7.5, that's a wager gauge of money. That's wager gauge of play all day.
Yeah, that's good for the price because he throws tons of hands, too.
Tons of volume. Tons of volume. Throws and takedowns is there.
He's not really going to get submitted. He's going to make it to the end of the fight.
Exactly. For 7.5, that's going to allow me to get those other guys that have been pricing over that 9,000. With Roundtree, this main event might not be as brutal as we were initially thinking. Still, save that money for other fight cards. There's a couple that I'm eyeing down the way that are really have potential. But we finally made it to the main event. At 170 pounds, we have Neil Magny versus Santiago, Lesbo's boyfriend, Ponzinibbio.
True.
From Orlando, you can see Ponzinibbio highlighted all over the LaTB screen, being gracious enough to give us a photo.
And all I kept thinking was, gosh, he's not really as big as I thought.
That's what I think as well. I was thinking he was going to be humongous, but 170 pounds, I mean, I walk around at 170 pounds, but I would think he walked around at like 205 or something.
Or even his height. I felt like, was I taller than Ponzinibbio?
You were not taller, but there's no way in hell he was at 6 foot.
I felt like he had boots on, too.
I agree with that. But it says here on Tapology, 6 foot.
I don't
no
think
way,
so.
right?
No way. No way.
At best 5'10". But not even that's being gracious.
You can go to our Instagram and look at Lesbo in the Bean.
And see. So, Ponzinibbio versus Neil Magny. 26-3 Ponzinibbio is coming in as a big favorite against a 21-6 Neil Magny. The 31-year-old Magny, I mean, both of these guys have top-level competition. This is really a premier fight. Craig White's last win for Magny 5 months ago. Before that...
He might be 6 foot. Now look how much taller he is than me.
Okay, he might be 6 foot. Why am I thinking he was so...
Why do we both think he was so little? Unless I crouched down and he stood up. Maybe
maybe he crouched down a little more.
Maybe I did and he like...
Leaned back?
And
I do think he was leaning back.
I don't know why we thought he was so little.
I still think 6 foot's pushing it. I would say 5'10".
He's using that Hollywood height. He's got that Hollywood height.
So, Neil Magny, coming off a 2-fight winning streak, beating Carlos Condon in a decision, then also Craig White. Before that, losing to Dos Anjos submission, beating Johnny Hendricks as an underdog, and losing to Lorenz Larkins in a TKO, one of his most brutal TKOs. We've seen Neil Magny get back on track, though, using that cardio, takedown defense, and pace to really wear guys out in those 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. As of late, Ponzinibbio has put together a 5-6 fight winning streak, coming off of brutal showings, knocking out Gunny Nelson, decisioning Mike Perry, but also having other marquee wins in there against Nordine Talib in a decision, Zach Cummings in a decision as well, and Court McGee. I'd say Neil Magny slightly has better competition to me. With Dos Anjos in there, even though he lost it. The Craig White one, not so bad. Carlos Condon, again. Maybe.
Not as of late, but in his career, he's fought higher competition. Right.
And Perry is iffy as a competitor, but... Here, the Bean was all over Ponzinibbio in that fight, saying Perry's got holes in.
Perry's where he's at for personality.
Totally.
I just don't trust Cowboy's chin anymore, but I might like him. I'm nervous about 155. We don't have to go back to that.
So, Ponzinibbio, what he did against Perry in there is what I think the type of game plan that he can put together. He's coming out of that ATT Florida scene. Those leg kicks that Lorenz Larkins landed on Magny, I think ATT sees as well. And Ponzinibbio can do that because he just did it against Perry. And that's what Magny does. He's a very straight-up fighter, uses those Muay Thai clinch, if not pummels you to the cage. And Magny really works off of the cage's best to get you to the ground. And then just when he's on top of you, Neil Magny doesn't stop throwing punches and wears you down and just really wears on that cardio. It's got a good chin as well in there, but can Neil Magny take an eye poke is my question. Because if he can't, you get knocked out so good. If you can't, Ponzinibbio tends to like to throw his fingers out there, and being in Argentina,
He fights with that Winklejohn palm.
the local Argentinian fighter is going to have the judges in his corner. There's just more things that I think he can get away with a fence grab in there if he needs to,
Have you
being up on
seen
the cage.
Ponzinibbio in 5 rounds?
I want to say the Perry fight was a 5-rounder.
I
That
thought
was the main
so,
event
but I
on
was
Fox.
okay.
And we have seen him in there against Gunny in a 5-rounder, but he finished Gunny via eye pokes and brutal finish in there. Magny, as an underdog, always tends to come out because of that pace, the takedown, the pushing you up against the fence and really just stifling fighters. We've seen Ponzinibbio really use that takedown defense, though, and clinch defense, and he circles away from the fence well. He tends to slow down more out of both of the fighters. I think Magny gives away the first 2 rounds, but can potentially take the last 3. I do think that...
You think he slows down more? But
I think Ponzinibbio slows down more.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do too.
And I think Magny turns it on more. So if this fight tends to go to decision, I would see Magny tending to win this, especially it being 5 rounds.
But the local part.
I see one of those rounds being a dirty-ass split decision, and I think Pons gets it. I got Pons in a dirty split. He might not deserve it, but I'm just saying the odds are wrong here at minus 325 for Ponzinibbio. I see if there's any type of value, it's all in Neil Magny. I got Pons winning this in a decision, but I see it being a dirty-ass split. So, value-wise, over 2.5 rounds or over halfway rounds. If not, I could see Magny winning a dirty split as much as Ponzinibbio in this fight. I got Pons. I don't feel good about it. Who do you have in this fight?
I got Ponzinibbio decision as well, and I think the odds are way off. How much are they on DraftKings?
DraftKings is 9,000 for Ponzinibbio against 7,200.
If you wanted to, for your cards, 5 rounds of Neil Magny for 7-2, that is like the wager gauger.
Which we have multiple.
I don't see him getting finished.
Multiple wager gaugers in here.
He needs to check those leg kicks.
Yep, exactly.
It is a 5-round fight. But if that happens, okay, Neil Magny is a pro.
Even in a 3-round fight, Neil Magny throws out the type of output that he can lose a 3-round fight and still score 60 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a 3-round.
In a 3-round fight.
I agree with you. I have Ponzinibbio decision. If this were in Nevada, I could have Neil Magny decision.
I would agree with that.
Like, this is
way
a tight
more.
fight. This
is an
fight.
Argentinian fighter, in the first
but
Argentinian
I also
fight.
like everything that's happening for Ponzinibbio in his career. I think he's one to watch. I do think this is happening in Argentina just for him. I think he is a big celebrity. He's a good-looking guy. So he has to go through Neil Magny to keep going.
So
Neil Magny is a gatekeeper.
Historically, the fun stat I was hearing earlier, I think, MMA by the numbers, Neil Magny tends to go into your home and beat you. He's like 10-3, going to Brazil twice, going to Germany, going to New Zealand. Neil Magny has traveled the world and usually wins. He usually loses his second fight in the country. So this is his first time in Argentina.
I could switch to Neil Magny day of. I
I'm
want to
just
see what
saying,
he looks
split
like.
decision, minus 325, way off. We gave you a ton of lines. We gave you a ton of props. We gave you a ton of options on DraftKings as far as I was concerned. I thought it was going to play out differently.
If you insist on playing DraftKings this week, we gave you, I think, plenty of info on it.
For sure.
That's what we see, so hopefully you're liking and subscribing.
Let's play the beat!
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.